As an Ictc staff member, it is your responsibility to be aware of all policies established to protect the safety and welfare of both employees and students in the case of an emergency. An emergency situation must be handled immediately to avoid a dangerous situation that threatens the welfare of staff and students. Keep the following procedures in mind during an emergency. Stay calm. Continue normal activities. Avoid crowds and excitement. Most situations are best handled privately. Evaluate the situation. What are the immediate risks or danger? Call for assistance immediately. Determine the most appropriate immediate action to take: first aid, comfort, or reassurance. Inform building administration. Remain at scene until relieved. Keep accurate written records of the events that occurred. Make a copy of all written reports. And direct all inquiries to the Administrative Director's office. Some of the most difficult issues to handle are emotional issues. The worst case scenario of this is a student who is contemplating thoughts of suicide. When you are with a student in crisis who displays signs of suicidal behavior, remain with the student at all times. Then notify the principal or counselor of the student's behavior. Also make sure that you have proof of ideation. These could be things such as notes, artwork, statements from students, or apparent self-mutilation. Parents must be notified. Crisis center may be contacted. It is your job as a staff member to keep all tobacco, alcohol, and other drugs out of the school and away from the students. Students may try to smuggle and use these substances while on school property, which is strictly forbidden. Make sure to immediately report any suspicion or presence of use as soon as you find out. The principal will notify appropriate authorities, including parents. Keep your students under supervision while you contact the principal. After that, confiscate the samples. Place the samples in an envelope or some other kind of container. Label the following things on this container for the appropriate authorities. First, the date and time of the incident, along with the student or students that you found the samples on. School name and description of contents. This could be adjectives like pill, capsule, leafy, liquid, etc. You will need to sign the container along with an adult witness that saw you find and contain the substance. And finally, record the name and title of the person that you are turning the samples over to, along with the date and time. The office will tell you where students and staff must report in the event that you must take emergency shelter. These crises are usually caused by severe weather. When the event of an emergency evacuation is announced, make sure to take your gradebook with class rosters, flashlight, first aid kit, and essential personal items with you. Leave the lights on and shut down any computers. Unplug electrical equipment, close windows, shut the door, and move quickly and quietly to the designated emergency shelter. Look at the emergency evacuation plan for details about where to go and how to get there. When at the emergency shelter location, instruct your students to assume the position that ensures maximum personal safety. Then report attendance and any missing students to the principal. Instruct the students to then stay in that position, stay quiet, and wait for further orders from staff. After immediate threats have passed, dismissal will take place by notifying each individual teacher or program area. Instructions will be given to return back to classrooms or to the bus loading areas. Emergency dismissal procedure. The director will notify the building principal as to the reason for the early dismissal based on the health, safety, and welfare of students. The principal will notify classroom teachers by intercom or phone with the reason and time of dismissal. Permit students concerned with having a parent or guardian at home to use the classroom phone or personal cell phones. Staff members are encouraged to use their personal cell phone to place necessary calls. Encourage return calls to your cell phone or to your extension. The office phone needs to be available for parent or emergency personnel contacts. All available staff who are not assigned to a class at the time of the emergency dismissal should report to the office for emergency dismissal duties. Once all buses are on site, follow normal dismissal procedures. Emergency exit procedure. In the event of a fire or emergency evacuation of the building, use the following guideline. When the fire alarm sounds or you have been notified by the office to evacuate the building, instruct the students in your room or work area to leave the room in an orderly manner and report to the area outside the building assigned to you. You will instruct the students which exit to use and where to meet outside based on the reason for the emergency evacuation. Stress to students the importance of meeting and staying together outside. Anytime you are leaving the building under an emergency evacuation, you may not be permitted back inside the building. Always take personal belongings with you such as your car keys, cell phone, purse, and wallet. Close the windows, shut down computers, leave lights on, close the door, and leave it unlocked. Take your gradebook with class roster. Once outside, remain with your students, take roll, and wait for further instruction. Make sure your school ID is clearly visible. Refer to the floor plan posted by your door to identify primary and secondary escape routes from your room to the outside. As an Ictc staff member, you are considered a mandated reporter. This means you are mandated to make a report to the authorities when there is a reasonable cause to suspect a student is a victim of child abuse. Determining whether reasonable cause of suspected abuse exists, a school employee may consult the school nurse to assess any injuries located on the student. If reasonable suspicion is established, it is the duty of the school employee to report the incident to administration. After that, here's what you should do. First, protect the health, safety, and welfare of the student until the intended agencies arrive. Do not let them leave the premises or find any excuse to leave the building and possibly return to a harmful environment. Then, report the incident to the principal and Department of Welfare, which has its number listed here. You may also be required to report to the Children and Youth Service, which also has its number listed here. Finally, you will be required to write a formal statement or report for the Children and Youth Service. School counselors and school nurses will have copies of report forms. They can help you complete the form. The death of a student or staff member is unsettling to the entire school community. Whether it is by natural causes, accident, suicide, or homicide, the impact will have both temporary and lasting effects to the entire school. You will need to respond in a meaningful way that will address the needs of the situation. These are the steps that you will need to take in order for this news to be the least damaging to both the students and the surrounding staff. You will have to notify the office of all facts you have about the loss of a staff member or student. The principal will notify the director's office and all key members of personnel. Then, make sure to contact individual students that you believe will be most affected by the loss. Make sure that they are consoled and have the appropriate attention brought to them in their time of need. Dates, times, and numbers of counseling services will be available in the office when appropriate. A prepared announcement will be made available to read to students with the facts surrounding the death and all funeral arrangements. A no-comment approach to all social media is encouraged by students and staff members in regards to the death. The director is the sole point of contact with the media. Medical emergency. A medical emergency is an extreme situation that can happen at an unpredictable time. You need to know the signs of a medical emergency and what you can do to help save a student or staff member's life. Here is a list of the many different medical emergencies that have a high chance of happening while at school. How you handle these situations will make all the difference. This is how you can help a student or staff member if they are experiencing a medical emergency. First, make sure that you remain with the student. Get outside help by dialing the emergency number 333. Provide information as to what type of emergency is occurring. If you assess the situation and find that 911 definitely needs to be called, call the office and tell them to do so. If you call 911 directly, inform the office immediately after you do so. The office will contact any medically trained personnel in the building. They will also contact any parents and will coordinate the arrival of medical personnel. When they arrive, stay with them and help them in any way they instruct you to. Depending on the situation, students may be instructed to stay in their classroom if the emergency happens in another part of the building. Unauthorized person on campus. An unauthorized person on school campus could range from someone who is lost to someone who wishes to cause harm to the people around them. Caution is always advised when deciding to approach these people or not. The first thing that you should do is contact the main office. If the situation is dangerous, call 911 directly. Provide as much information as you can about weapons, descriptions, how many, and where they are located. The director or principal is in the position to decide whether certain measures should be conducted. They can give the signal for staff to lock and secure the classrooms, contact the police for assistance, or approach the individuals. If you can watch the individual, report any movement or activity to the main office. A bomb threat is also an unpredictable and sudden emergency that needs to be handled with the most precise and efficient measures. Bomb threats can be received in a number of ways: by phone, through mail, written as a note or letter, by email, etc. If you receive a call that contains threatening statements towards the school, try to prolong the situation. Use another phone to call authorities. Try to distinguish voice characteristics and background noise in order to get a better idea of who the caller is. Ask for the description of the bomb, where it is, and when it is due to detonate. Gather any additional information that might be helpful to authorities. Notify the office. The principal will consult the superintendent and police to determine if a search may be conducted and if staff and students should evacuate the building. The principal will direct staff and students with immediate instructions. As a staff member, analyze your surroundings. Do not open cabinets, doors, or move objects. If you see anything suspicious, do not touch it. Report any information to the office. If an emergency exit procedure is conducted, follow those procedures. Chemical or biological contamination. Great caution must be exercised to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of all students and staff in the event of a possible chemical or biological agent contamination in or near the school environment. School officials must determine the credibility of a condition in which chemical or biological agents may have been introduced into a school environment and treat it as a crisis situation. Notify and seek assistance from the County Emergency Management Director, 911, for procedures to follow. Switch off heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems if suspected releases in the building. Retreat to a safe location. Do not return to the contaminated area. If necessary, emergency exit procedures will be initiated by the office. Once outside, stand upwind. If a visible cloud appears, stay well clear of it. It may be necessary to lock down the building in the event of a chemical or biological contamination outside. No one is permitted to leave the building until approved to do so by the principal or emergency response personnel. Communication and cooperation with the county emergency management is crucial during a possible chemical or biological incident. Comply with all requests and directives. Lockdown procedure. Situations may arise that require the school to be locked down. The need for lockdown may not necessarily mean there is an emergency. Lockdown may be needed when the movement of people in and out of the building or classrooms needs to be closely monitored or restricted. The office will announce via the intercom or classroom phone when lockdown is canceled. During lockdown, all exterior doors and windows must be secured, especially if the threat or emergency is acting upon the building from the outside. No visitors will be permitted in the building during lockdown. If lockdown occurs during after-school hours, follow the same procedure. Confine the members of your activity to your classroom, gym, auditorium, etc. until informed by the office that the situation is over. Lockdown should not be interpreted that a dangerous situation is occurring. The purpose of a lockdown is to provide safety to those in the building during an unusual situation and/or to reduce the interference with emergency response personnel.